Crawford vs. Indongo unification fight. Now, let me educate you folks on something. Some of you that are new to boxing, that are casual, that are just getting in boxing, let me educate you on why this fight is very, very important. In my years of following boxing, from the time I was maybe 5, 6 years old when I first was introduced, knowledgeably knowing what boxing was about, there were two champions, the World Boxing Association and the World Boxing Council. And during that time of my lifetime, the only championships I remember being unified were the lightweight championship when Roberto Duran held it, and the middleweight championship from Carlos Monzon down to until Marvin Hagler was dethroned by Sugar Ray Leonard. The middleweight championship was the longest unified championship in my knowledge, in my years of boxing. We only had two titles then. The last undisputed lightweight champion was Pernell Whitaker, and that was after the invention of the International Boxing Federation. Whitaker held the IBF, the WBA, and the WBC lightweight championships. So he was the last undisputed lightweight champion. Of course, Whitaker then went up in weight and won the WBC welterweight title. Now, let's not get undisputed mixed up with unified. There's a difference. There are a bunch of people that have been unified champions where you hold two or more titles. In this day and age of boxing where we have four champions, there has not been the last undisputed champion of note since we had the four major titles was Jermaine Taylor. Because simply put, Bernard Hopkins once again unified the middleweight championship. He then lost the title to Jermaine Taylor, and Jermaine Taylor was stripped of titles before he eventually lost the lineal title to Kelly Pavlik. Now, the junior welterweight division, which is where this bout will be held, has had several unified champions, from Amir Khan to Tim Bradley to Danny Garcia. They were unified champions. Amir Khan held the WBA and IBF titles. Tim Bradley held the WBC and WBO titles. Danny Garcia held the WBA and WBC titles. No one has held all four titles. And next Saturday, on ESPN, Julius Indongo, the WBA and IBF junior welterweight or super lightweight champion, will meet Terrence Crawford, the WBC and WBO junior welterweight and or super lightweight champion, to unify. So when that night is over, one man will be recognized as the man in that weight class. In this day and age of boxing, where we have a bunch of unified champions, we don't have any undisputed champions. Now, there are two other divisions in boxing that have a chance at this. Gennady Golovkin, who holds three of the major middleweight titles, and Billy Joe Sanders, who holds the other ones, should they be able to get together, they could unify. Andre Ward, who holds three of the light heavyweight titles, and Adonis Stevenson, who holds one, and the lineal, should they get together, they could unify and have it undisputed. Right now in boxing, we have a bunch of there are only a rare cases where we could have an undisputed. Right now, middleweight and light heavyweight are the marks where we could happen, where there are, two men that hold all the gold, and two men could unify to get all the gold together. This fight here is the only one that's being made. And that, to me, is a shock because I would be think, as a boxing fan, we want an undisputed champion. Love it, and because we want to know who's the champion. The problem with boxing is we have so many weight classes and so many champions per weight classes, and these crappy governing bodies do us no favors when they decide to make these quote unquote interim in or regular or super or all this other horse shit. Especially the WBA has been good with this fuckery. And WBA has an interim, a regular, and a super champion. And the WBA is the one who said, well, we're going to get rid of all that. Well, I don't like any of these governing bodies. I don't. I think they're all a piece of shit. I will give the WBO and the IBF credit because they have not fallen into the trap of interim, regular, and all this other horse shit. They have at least stuck to having one champion per division. So I will give the IBF and WBO their credit. The WBC now has decided, since Keith Thurman is out, that they're going to have Danny Garcia. They want Danny Garcia to fight Sean Porter for the interim welterweight title, which means that guy would then be Keith Thurman's mandatory, even though Sean Porter already beat Andre Berto to become the mandatory. But the WBC wants those sanctioning fees that they're not getting because Thurman's not able to defend. Of course, they say no, to keep the title active. Yes, to keep the title active, keep those sanctioning fees. The WBA, on the other hand, has Keith Thurman as the super champion and Lamont Peterson as the regular champion. Of course, the IBF has Earl Spence Jr. The WBO has Jeff Horn. Now, welterweight welterweight's a mess. So the chance of getting an undisputed welterweight champion, not too good, because Bob Arum is not going to risk that WBO title that he can control. Nobody wants to fight Earl Spence Jr. And it's only a matter of time before one of these governing bodies finds a way to strip Keith Thurman, because that's what these guys do. The minute you unify, they find BS ways to strip the champion so they can all go on their merry way and make their money. But that's enough of that part. Let's get back to the importance of this fight between Indongo and Crawford. The importance of this fight between Indongo and Crawford is this. We could have an undisputed champion. Well, Andre Ward and Adonis Stevenson are dancing around the ideal. Ward's talking about going to cruiserweight, and Adonis Stevenson is acting like a total diva. And and of course Golovkin has Canelo, and then Charlos is mandatory. But the one thing these governing bodies have said is that they will make a mandatory weight if there's unification. So Billy Joe Sanders doesn't seem like he's interested in making that unification. He's trying to milk that belt for as much as he can get out of it, because he knows the first time he fights somebody serious, he's going to lose it. And there goes his bargaining position. So middleweight and light heavyweight, I don't know if it'll happen. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But at 140 pounds, it's going down. Next Saturday, Terrence Crawford, Julius Indongo are going to bang it out for the undisputed 140-pound championship. Now, Julius Indongo is an interesting story. He's from Nambia, and he's been fighting on the road. Where he will fight again. He will be going to Omaha. He has a very awkward style, and from what I've seen of Indongo, he's a counter puncher, but like I said, he's awkward. He's a guy that it's gonna be hard to line him up. He's also a southpaw. And the two fights I've seen of Indongo, when he won the IBF title, when he won the WBA title, both his title fights, I watched him with Ricky Burns. And I watched a part of the other fight where he won in Russia. He shows some skills. He shows that he's not going to be, this is not going to be an easy fight. Crawford's going to have to really be on his P's and Q's. So if you're tuning into this fight, which I hope you are, do not expect fireworks. This is going to be a very tactical chess match, because Crawford's going to take a couple of rounds to figure out Indongo. And Ndongo's going to, Ndongo's a counter puncher, so he's going to take some time to figure out what he can get away with Crawford. I don't expect a lot of sustained action in this fight, but I do expect a very tactical fight. Crawford, who is an orthodox fighter but fights southpaw, I expect Crawford to do what he does, come out there, start out orthodox, see how that works, and then go southpaw, see how that works. Whichever works better for Crawford, he's going to go with. Now, Crawford seems to be a very good fighter out of the southpaw stance, better than most people would give him credit for. Man's awesome. For an orthodox fighter to fight southpaw, he's freaking awesome. And Terence Crawford also has a very high ring IQ. And Indongo seems to have a very high ring IQ. I expect this thing to be a tactical fight through the first 4 rounds. Of Crawford and Indongo just probing each other, seeing what each other has, seeing what's opening. And then about the 5th round, I expect things to open up. And I expect it to be Crawford to figure out Indongo, do what he has to do, and I expect Crawford to win a unanimous decision. Down the stretch, I expect a 116-112 score. I think Crawford will figure out Indongo. I think the opening rounds, the first 4 rounds are going to be iffy depending on how they go. I could see the first 4 rounds being split between both of them. And then I expect Terence Crawford from round 5 on to start pulling up. I expect maybe Indongo grab a round or 2. But I expect Crawford to win this 8 rounds to 4, 116-112. It's going to be a very tactical fight. I'm not calling for knockdowns because we don't know. It could happen. It might not happen. I don't know. But I think Crawford has fought a higher caliber of fighter that has prepared Terence Crawford for this, plus the fact he's at home. So I expect Terence Crawford to make the adjustment. Not that Julius Indongo won't, but I expect Crawford to make the adjustments here. I think Crawford will, with his ability to switch from southpaw to right hand, Crawford will see what works best for him, but he also is not afraid to switch hit. It's not like Terence Crawford. If he seems that he's going orthodox, and everything's working, the jab's popping, the right hand's coming across, and everything's working, it's not like Terence Crawford won't turn around and go southpaw and see, what he can get away with there. It's not like Crawford is the type of guy that he'll start out orthodox and then switch in the middle of a combination and go southpaw on you. Those are the kind of tricks that Terence Crawford has that he can pull on you. And it can confuse a fighter. And with someone with Indongo's herky-jerky movement and some of the things Indongo does, Indongo may set himself up to allow Crawford to do that and get in and out seamlessly. Because Indongo does have Indongo has a habit of, when he goes offensive, he goes offensive defensive, where he throws shots, but he's also moving out of the way while he's throwing shots. I think that Crawford will, being that he's a southpaw, Crawford will fill him out of southpaw. If that's working well and Terence Crawford says, okay, southpaw, we're doing this, great. But I think Crawford will find times to switch up the other way and go that way too. And I think that's going to be the difference, that Terence Crawford will pick those moments in the middle there where he can go southpaw's working, but he'll make the right hand orthodox style work. And I think that will keep Indongo off balance to the point where Indongo's going to be hesitant to do a lot of the crap he normally does. A lot of his jump in and throw shots and his zip in. Crawford will nullify that, because if I can get you southpaw and I'm bop, 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 that can come right back, bop, 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 and you don't know, and I can be effective either way. Indongo, it makes you stop and think about how you want to attack this guy. And I think those are the moments when Indongo has to stop and think. Instead of him naturally being able to do what he does, he's worried about, wait a minute, is Crawford going to come at me southpaw, or is he going to come at orthodox? While he's worried about that reply from Crawford, Crawford's going to be able to get his stuff off. And Crawford's going to be able to pull out those rounds. And I think that's going to be the difference in this fight, is that Crawford's ability to switch hit is going to trip up Indongo enough that Crawford's going to be able to just take the fight and maybe slow Indongo's offense down enough to take rounds. And by the time, I expect Crawford to have that little bit, that edge of, because the quality of guys he's fought from, people take away from the fact that Gamboa was out of his weight class at lightweight when he fought Crawford. But here's the thing, Gamboa was an undefeated two-division champion with a high ring IQ. And he was able to give Crawford, he buzzed Crawford in that fight. But Crawford got through that moment and was able to just take Gamboa apart. Because Crawford was able to figure out what Gamboa likes to do. He was able to give Gamboa problems, and he was able to nullify Gamboa's offense. Now, since then, Gamboa's lost a fight since then because, I think after the Crawford loss, Gamboa decided to go back down to 130. But I think I've always questioned the fact that Gamboa, one, was inactive, has bad promotional issues, it was inactive. And two, Gamboa, maybe age has caught up with him, because a lot of those fighters from Cuba, by the time they get here at 28, 29, they're older fighters. And that older fighters at lower weight classes, age catches up with you quicker at lower weight classes than it does at a higher weight class. You can see a guy like middleweight, light heavyweight, even heavyweight. Those guys don't start, heavyweights especially, don't start maturing until they're 28, 29, 30. So they don't get better till then. That means, Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, they're still babies as far as their maturity level in the ring and their body wise at a heavyweight, which is why we were able to see Bernard Hopkins fight at such a fight at such a high level for so long. This fight is going to be important for boxing because we will have a champion. We will know who the champion is at this weight class, and we need more of this. We need more of these guys to get these little belts and say, you know what, I want to be the man. And I'm proud of both Julius Indongo and Terence Crawford for this. And I'm looking forward next Saturday night to watching this fight. Now, I am hoping that a lot of you that are watching this video will also tune in to ESPN and watch this fight, because this is a very big fight for boxing. And it's going to give us the one thing, if you look at the UFC, I compare boxing to, we all know the UFC, whether you're a UFC fan or not, but if UFC brought three other companies. They brought Pride, they brought WEC, and they brought Strikeforce. Now, let's just say the UFC decided we bought all these companies and we're going to let all four of these titles from these companies stand. Well, that would mean we will have 4 champions per weight class. We'll have a WEC champion, we'll have a Pride fighter, we're going to keep the Pride title around, we're going to keep the Strikeforce title around. So, and we're going to have the UFC title. So we're going to have these 4 champions per weight class. And for some reason, they were unable, like John Jones would wear the UFC title, but then maybe, Gustafson's the Strikeforce light heavyweight champion, and then, let's just say Anthony Rumble Johnson won the Pride. And somebody else won the WEC. Now you got 4 men. Well, who's the champion? The thing with the UFC is when they brought these championships in here, they consolidated them with their titles. So there's only one. Each weight class of the UFC has 1 champion. 1, that's it. Now they do have a case where the champions, they have an interim champion. But what they do is as soon as the champion's healthy and able to get back in there, you fight this interim and we get back to having 1. We don't want 2 champions in a weight class. And that's what the UFC's done. That's what's helped them in a lot of ways, is because you can go up and down. You know who the UFC champions are. There's not 4 UFC champions. If you ask who's the UFC light heavyweight champion, it's John Jones. And it's not John Jones and this guy and this guy and this guy. No. At light heavyweight, the best we can say is it's Andre Ward and Adonis Stevenson. Well, after next Saturday, August 19th, when you say who's the junior welterweight champion, we're going to either say Julius Indongo or Terence Crawford. One of them will be the champion. And that's what boxing needs more of. Welterweight, we got 3 guys claiming to be champion. Keith Thurman, Earl Spence Jr., and Jeff Horn. A lot of weight, and that's at that. At middleweight, we have two guys. We have Golovkin and we have Billy Joe Sanders. Heavyweight, we got four guys. Well, I'm sorry, heavyweight, we got three guys. We got Wilder, we got Parker, and we got AJ, Anthony Joshua. Wouldn't it be great to have one guy, one champion in this weight class? And that this fight here is going to give us that. This fight is going to give us one champion in this weight class. I personally like Crawford in this fight. I think Crawford wins this fight. Like I said, I think a 116-112. I think it's going to be 8 rounds to 4. It's going to be a very tight fight. It's going to be a very technical fight. Or what, as Jim Lampley would say, a boring fight. But Jim Lampley don't shit about boxing. It's going to be a fight because it's going to be high level. It's going to be a high level fight between two high level guys that know their shit in there. So if you're a guy that just wants to see rock'em sock'em robots, then this is the fight for you. If you're a guy that appreciates the beauty of boxing, wants to see two guys at their best, using their head to try to figure out how to break this guy down, this is the fight for you. The tactics. This is a fight. This is a tactician's dream. Two of the best guys with two high level guys going up against each other. Seeing who's the better man. My skill against your skill. And like I've said before in past videos in boxing, boxing is more mental than it is physical. You really have to have a ring IQ. You have to be a smart guy. You have to think in there. And that's what this fight is going to be in the early round. I think it's going to be in early rounds. The first 4 rounds are going to be spent, pretty much figuring out the other guy and where we're going from round 5 to 12. Like I said, I like Crawford in this. I think Crawford's level of opposition has been better than Indongo's. While most people are going to say, well, Indongo beat Burns easier than Crawford did. Well, yes, Indongo did beat Burns easier than Crawford did. But let's look at the Ricky Burns and Indongo fought versus the Ricky Burns that Terence Crawford fought. Terence Crawford fought a better Ricky Burns, a younger Ricky Burns, and he went to Scotland to do it. Indongo fought an older Ricky Burns, a more faded Ricky Burns, and a Ricky Burns at a higher weight class. Plus the fact for Crawford, when Crawford fought Indongo, that was his very first fight. 1, outside the U.S., and 2, his first title fight. When Indongo fought Crawford, Indongo was already the IBF champion who had fought in Russia to win the title. So he went from Russia to the UK to win this belt. So Indongo was better prepared to go take his show on the road. For Crawford, this was his first show on the road. So I think, the Crawford did a better job. I think they both did a good job. They both beat the same guy. I don't go by, well, Indongo did it better than Crawford. You got to look at the levels of their career where they were at. When Indongo fought Crawford, Indongo was already a champion. And the old saying is, once you become a champion, you get 25% better. Well, in that case, Crawford was not yet a champion when he fought Burns. Burns was. Indongo, when he fought Burns, was a champion. So there's different. You got to look at the levels of when they fought him and how they fought him. And I think this is going to be a very competitive fight. I'm not selling Julius Indongo short by no means. But at the same time, I think Terence Crawford is the goods. And I don't say that about a lot of fighters, but I think Crawford is the goods because I like to see guys tested. Crawford, to me, if I watched the Crawford fight with Gamboa, and Gamboa had a lot of pop. Crawford, to me, went through some moments in the Gamboa fight where he was tested. And I mean tested. And he came through the test. Crawford was, Crawford has been in fights where he's been tested. He hasn't been. A lot of times, I always say Bob Arum has a habit of protecting a lot of his fighters, his golden gooses. Terence Crawford doesn't seem to be that guy because Terence Crawford seems to be fighting monsters. Crawford is fighting a high caliber bunch of guys. Whereas when you look at what Arum did with De La Hoya to an extent, and what he's doing with Lomachenko, he's not fighting he's not putting Lomachenko in with no real killers. Now there's rumor that Lomachenko in December will be back in December. He may fight he may fight Salido, who beat him, or he may fight Guillermo Rigondeaux, who's coming up 2 weight classes. And that's going to be the best fight he's had other than his win over Gary Russell Jr., who's gotten better since, actually since his loss to Lomachenko. Gary Russell Jr. has gotten better. So it took that loss for Gary Russell Jr. to stop fighting bums and start fighting quality guys and showing that, hey, I am, you know. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes if you're a fighter at a certain level and you start fighting guys below your level, you start fighting down your opposition. A lot of these kids in the amateurs, well, I respect Lomachenko because a lot of these kids in the amateurs, you're an amateur, you're fighting the best guys in your weight class all the way through, especially when you're a two-time Olympic gold medalist. You're fighting the best in the world. Then you turn pro and you start fighting lower opposition. It's like, what the fuck? And you start fighting down. I seen the last fight. Lomachenko did what he had to do against a guy that, one, was fighting for the first time at 130 pounds and was 0-2 in title fights. So what the hell were you expecting to happen? Were you expecting this? What were you expecting from this guy? This guy already shown that he doesn't, when he steps up, he doesn't win. He fights, he's good against a certain level of fighter, and then he doesn't. It's like Adrian Broner. Broner, if you put Broner in against a low B, a B minus to a C fighter, Broner shines. But when you put him in there with an A, with a B plus, with an A fighter, you find out what Broner's all about. That, okay, he's not as good as advertised. And people keep making excuses for Broner. Well, he just let his hands go. He does. No, here's the thing. Ever since Broner got his ass beat by Maidana, he's become gun shy. And I think that's an issue that is mental. Like I said, boxing is mental. And the same thing I said about Kovalev and Ward is that Kovalev could not get over the first loss to Ward, and mentally it fucked him up. And it still bugs him because he's still not over, because now he's trying to see if Nevada will overturn the victory and all that. When you can't get past something and it bothers you. Broner could not get past the loss to Maidana. Kovalev cannot get past the losses to Ward, and it's going to hamper them. It's hampering both of them because boxing is more than just physical. It's mental. It's mental. If you're beaten here mentally, if you go into a fight and you don't have 100% belief in yourself, man, you're in trouble. Because I don't care if I lose to this guy here. When I go fight the next guy, I got to believe I'm the baddest motherfucker out there. And I got to go into that fight, and I got to believe that, and I have to go in there and fight, and then, okay, I prove myself I'm that good. When, you know, in Adrian Broner, you can give a guy soft tough, but till you get in there with tough, till you get in there tough, till you confront those scary places that you've been through when you lost, until you've been there, you don't really know what you're worth. And the same thing I'm saying with Lomachenko is, yes, he has all this talent, but he hasn't fought a fighter like Salido since he lost to Salido. So we don't know what's going to happen when he faces another guy like that. They've been giving Lomachenko all these guys where Lomachenko's now the aggressor, and these guys are pretty much counterpunchers. They're not aggressive guys. Until they give Lomachenko somebody like Salido's going to come after him and force him to counteract that, we don't know what Lomachenko's head's like. Does Lomachenko shell up? Or does he say, oh, I've been here before, and this is what I did wrong this time, but I know I'm not going to make that mistake this time. This is what I'm going to do now. You don't know, and the jury's still out on Lomachenko in that regards. The pound-for-pound thing has become totally a joke. This is why I don't do pound-for-pound lists, because ESPN, HBO, and these guys are trying, Top Rank are trying to sell you Lomachenko is #1 pound-for-pound, and that's ridiculous. And you know what also disgusts me is how Bob Arum keeps throwing around Muhammad Ali's name. This is the best fighter in Ali. This is the best. You know, Bob, stop it. You really should stop it. You know, you act like you were the only guy to promote Ali. Please, Ali allowed you the privilege of promoting him. Ali allowed Don King the privilege of promoting him. But guess what, guys? Ali never needed a promoter. He never needed you guys. Ali promoted his own damn fights. You guys were just there for the distribution. You know, Ali didn't need you guys. You needed Ali more than Ali needed you. And it wasn't for Ali, neither one of your bum asses would be in business right now. And I hate that Bob Arum is sitting there throwing around this guy's the best since Ali now that Muhammad is gone. That you got to use Muhammad's name to try to drum up support for your fighter. Look, we all see the kid has potential. We all see the kid could be special. But here's the difference with Ali. We knew Ali was special because Ali fought all the killers in that sport. Ernie Shavers, Joe Frazier, George Foreman. Every killer that was in the heavyweight division, Ali fought them and didn't waver to fight them. Everybody. There's not a single heavyweight that was around when Ali was around that was in line to fight Ali that can say, you know, in the 70s and say Ali didn't fight them. Fought Ken Norton 3 times. So Ali fought the best guy, fought Norton with a broken jaw. You know, lost the first fight, came back, won the next 2 fights. Yeah, it was a little controversial. We think Norton could have won, you know, maybe one of the second 2. But the point is, a trilogy with Norton, a trilogy with Joe Frazier. You know, beating Foreman in Zaire when everybody thought he was, you know, when Foreman was damn near invincible. Ernie Shavers, who was, oh my God, Ernie Shavers was Ernie Shavers hit like God. Probably one of the hardest hitters in the history of the sport. So you can't compare these guys. You can't stop comparing these guys to Muhammad because, man, unless they're willing to do what Muhammad did, which is go out there, fight the very best guys in their division regardless. And these guys aren't willing to do that. They're not looking to fight the best. They're looking to make their little Nike deals, their little crossover deals, and keep their little records in the shiny. No, I want to see, you know, stop comparing guys to Ali because there's nobody like Ali. There'll never be another Ali. There's not a fighter, an athlete. There's not an athlete alive that would do what Muhammad did. In today's day and age, there's not an athlete alive that will do what Muhammad did. Give up 3 years of their prime for what they believed in. There's not one alive. So I get offended when I hear you comparing Lomachenko to Muhammad. Stop it. So that's it for now on this version of Old School Boxing Talk. A lot of things, like I said, I see a lot of my next video. I'm going to cover some things about, you know, the next video will probably be the review, unless I do one between then. But I'm going to cover some things about what I see, some of the problems I see in boxing, and it's got to start. It starts from the young age. It's got to start with a lot of these kids not learning the basics and not practicing the basics. And they can throw flashy combinations, but they really don't know the basics. And it hurts them later on in their careers. I've seen a lot of it happen in recent years in boxing. So till next time, it's Doe Wilkerson signing out. See you later.